Hey folks, welcome to another podcast episode. This is episode 12, and today we are calling this episode The Philosophy Behind All the Music Things. You've heard me talk about all the things on my Make Music Income channel a lot on my videos. We talk about it here in the podcast, the fact that you need to be doing all the things that you can to make music income. But today we're going to go behind that a little bit and talk about what that means and the philosophy that says you shouldn't do all the things. You should concentrate on one great thing. And so we're going to be talking about the good and the bad about both of those today and maybe how they go together. And so we'll talk about that. But first, I'm going to hand it over to my partner, Steve. And Steve, what's been going on, man?
A lot. Hashtag all the things have been going on. Another busy week, which is good. Busy is good. So yeah, what do we got here? I got a little list in front of me. Three submissions were forwarded for the taxi brief for the guitar underscores, which is a nice little bit of validation, I guess, which is cool. Still working on the cinematic folk album. The bigger picture, hopefully maybe 10 or 12 songs, which I'll eventually throw around, pitch, see who takes them. But that's, nice little bit of progress from Taxi, so that's cool. Demand for the MIDI packs from Production Music Tools has skyrocketed since the beginning of this year. It's not a lot of money for me every month, but it's become significant. It went from, the occasional selling 1 pack, 2 packs a month to now selling, quite a few. It's probably, a few in the range of a few $100 a month for me now, which is cool because I don't really know where that traffic is coming from. It might just be more Google searches or I don't know, but it's nice to see. And I wanted to put it out on the podcast today that I'm officially looking to hire music producers to help me create these MIDI packs. If anyone out there is interested in doing that, you can hit me up over email at steven@productionmusictools.com, and we can talk about a deal. I have a generous offer, and I'm running out.
I'm looking for work, by the way.
Yeah, you're hired. But I've run out of time to work on.
Let me put that on my list. Got hired by Steve.
Well, I need some piano progressions, man. So you're the man for that. But if anyone's interested, just hit me up and we can talk more about it. So submitted a ton of back catalog to Motion Array. Yesterday, some corporate stuff, some hip hop stuff. Hopefully that goes through. And also, I officially signed up with Indentifyy. So I am now in the Content ID system officially. I got my first couple of tracks in there. I'm committing them to the stock libraries. Indentifyy really, the way I see it is they really couldn't make the upload process any easier. It's just super simple. I was worried it was going to be a big headache, but it's easy, man. So hopefully building, taking the first steps to building some passive income down the road there. What else is going on? Oh yeah, a film I scored almost 2.5 years ago, I think, is finally being released this evening, at the Victoria Film Festival here in Canada. That's nice. It's called Islands. It's directed by my friend Darren Borrowman. So big shout out to him and the whole crew who put that together. The release was put on hold because of COVID, and it's been surreal that it's finally coming out today. So that's a good feeling, and it kind of makes me feel like things are kind of moving back to normal over here in Canada as well. So that's cool. Maybe we can throw the link to the trailer in the podcast notes if anyone wants to take a look at it, and I think it'll be available to the public in a couple of weeks from now. In other news, Premium Beat turned me down. I sent them, I think it was 5 lo-fi hip-hop tracks. And they got back to me the next day and said that they weren't looking for that kind of, that style, or they didn't need any music in that kind of, genre at the moment. but that the quality, it wasn't about the quality of the submission. It was a really just short, simple response, and I was kind of shocked by how quickly they got back to me. But there you go. If anyone is thinking about sending lo-fi hip hop tracks to Premium Beat, that's maybe something to keep in mind. And in the Academy, we have a monthly challenge. Are you going to be taking part in this monthly challenge to create?
Yes, I can't wait. That's going to be fun.
I'm excited about it too. I haven't started, and I really should, because I think it's going to expose just how much I rely on my fancy plugins and libraries. Because the challenge is to create a track using nothing but the stock sounds and plugins from whatever DAW that you use. In my case,
and that will be Logic for both of us.
That'll be Logic for both of us, which I think is Logic probably is the easiest or the best option for this challenge. But that being said, I'm so used to using the libraries that I use all the time that I feel like I'm going to struggle on this challenge, but it'll be fun. That's what a good challenge is all about. So one last thing to share with everyone is that I've created a Spotify playlist for the Make Music Income podcast. We already have a bunch of tunes on there. We got some of my tunes, Eric's tunes, as well as some folks in the Discord, some members from the Academy, and we're going to update it every Monday. And so if you want to send us your Spotify links, we'd be happy to share your work, and it'll just be something fun to add to the it'll be your soundtrack to making music income every week.
That's cool. Very cool. Well, is that all, Steve? Good Lord, that's a lot of stuff. And what's interesting in that is there's good and bad. There's victories and losses.
Exactly.
And that's happened to me this week too. My losses were where your victories were. I was not. You also had a victory that you can't talk about, so that's really cool too.
I can't talk about some victories, yeah.
But my loss was in. I didn't have any forwards this week out of 0 of 2, but I have another one that I just put up last night. My problem is I got to quit making these the same day that it's due.
Well, I wait. I don't know.
Or finishing it the day it's due.
The idea is to do them quickly, right? So I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's still a win in terms of like you got a track done. So
it's a win because one of them is a percussion thing that I'm building into a full album to pitch. So I'm excited about when that album has 10 or more songs on it. I'm going to pitch that sucker, and I might even use that in some other libraries to get a new library. Because it's very good. It's just, for whatever reason, it wasn't what they were looking for on the pitch and at Taxi. And then another one has already been accepted into at least 5 of my or 6 of my stock libraries, so that's okay. And again, it's more stuff for Motion Array. It's more stuff for Pond 5 and all those other things. And the other part is that since 2022 has begun, I have found about 6 new stock libraries to try to play with and experiment with, just like I did last year with things like Dreams Time and Music Grid and a lot of ones that I didn't make any or much from, but I experimented with them. I put music up to them and just let it sit there and see what happened. And I think you have to do that with all these to see if they're going to do anything. So I'm going to go over those in a video coming up, talking about 5 new things that I'm doing for 2022 to make music income.
Yeah, well, we don't know where the next gravy train is going to come from, right?
No, we don't.
And there will be another one at some point.
And each one of them is a completely different animal as far as how to upload to them. And and as some of you have heard me talk about this year, it's stock music. It is in the category of as little time as I can spend on it uploading. So a lot of libraries are not getting new music anymore that last year didn't perform. And this year, these will only get so much at a time. I can only afford to do so much per week. And now with Motion Array cutting so much of their income, that has even gone down. It was going to be like 2.5 hours a week of uploading and tagging and stuff. Now that's down to an hour or so a week that I can afford to spend on it, you know?
Yeah.
So the bigger news this week is I start teaching some lessons. I've started teaching around the Orlando area, and I'm also opening my a kind of a composition academy with my Hello Composers brand.
Cool.
I've got 2 videos that I'm, you know, sometimes, well, I don't know if you don't get into editing as much as I do, but sometimes I do videos and I just like to edit them to death, you know, and I don't go through that thing. Oh, I got to release on Thursday. I got to release on Friday. I'll release anytime, because I haven't found that any day is any different than any other as far as how many views it gets or comments it gets or whatever.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think I'm at a place with my channel where as long the content needs to be good. They even say that in YouTube stats when they say, "Oh, here's when your users are on here," and then below they goes, "This has shown no having to do nothing with long-term success of the video, though." It's just that's when your people are live, maybe on YouTube. But
yeah, sometimes it takes a long time for the video to pick up too. Like I've had videos that just fell flat on release, and then the algorithm just picked it up later. So
sometimes mine seem to do right. The good ones do good right out of the gate, and so I've got one Hello Composers video that's going to be on that channel about modes. That's really fun, but I had to reshoot it, so it's taken a while to get it out. And then another interview I did with Dan Barracuda about Spotify playlists that we've all been waiting to see, including me. And I'm still in the midst of, but that could be done really soon. I just got to go through and edit a bunch of stuff out.
So what are you teaching? You mentioned that you were teaching. Are you teaching piano or are you teaching composition? Like what's going on?
Yes, all of the above. Piano, composition, music production, trombone, beginning trombone, because I'm a trombone player.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Which you may not know. I don't play it a lot now, but it's, you know, to help new trombonists, I can help them.
Cool.
Trombonists figure that out.
So is this through like some kind of institution, or
it's
is
a
it
company
private?
here in town it's in about 10 or 15 cities.
Cool.
And they send teachers to the homes of people, and it's not cheap. It's higher end teaching, and it's not bad pay. And so it'll scratch the teaching itch until I get the university job that I'm looking for after getting my master's. You know, that's kind of been a part, but I think I might hold out and really wait till I can teach composition, because that's what I did my master's in, and that's what I'm most interested in, and that's why I do the whole Hello Composers channel. And it might turn out that my channels turn out to be my teaching outlet. Who knows? I got hired by Steve to create MIDI tracks.
Huge update.
I also have things going on trying to get into Premium Beat. I did a premium. When did you put your application in? Do you remember?
3 days ago.
Okay, so I put mine in like a week ago.
Oh, and you haven't heard back?
I haven't heard back.
Huh. Well, that's probably a good thing.
Maybe. I don't know. But probably not. But I really researched that library, and this is what I think you have to do, folks, when you're trying to get in these libraries. I went through and I said, okay, of the stuff that I do, what are they lacking in? Yeah. And I went to piano stuff, I went to jazz stuff, I went to a few other things, folk stuff, and different things I like to do. And I saw that their jazz side was kind of down, especially contemporary jazz. And when I say contemporary jazz, I mean almost on the... I've heard it described as lo-fi, but you know, it used to be called acid jazz.
Yeah.
And I don't think lo-fi is acid jazz personally.
No, not exactly.
I think acid jazz is jazzy. It has a jazz thing to it, but it has a strong R&B side to it.
Yeah.
And I can see how people would confuse the two. But a lot of my jazz group stuff lately has been more leaning into remixes and leaning into beats and stuff, along with these great Nashville jazz players I have. And so my next album is going to be all about that. But
cool.
So cool. I decided, and that's my highest produced stuff. And Premium Beat stuff is pretty highly produced.
Oh yeah.
If you listen to it.
It's all good. It's all really good stuff.
It sounds all Studio Pro produced stuff.
Yeah.
And so I decided I'd have best chance if I went with my highest produced stuff. So that's what I did. So we'll wait and hear from that. Like you, I'm getting ready to do Indentifyy. I've worked it out with Song Trader. Had some of my stuff inside of that, and I've worked it out with them to get that out of
good.
the system quickly. And so I'll be putting 70 to 100 songs up there. What is one thing I want to ask you from putting this in, and other people who want to put their stuff into Content ID through Indentifyy, how long did it take you to do each song?
What do you mean? Like, how long does it take it for the system to ingest it?
No, for you to put, you're inputting the song. What's the time per song?
Like how, the process.
Do you have to
like,
fill out a page of information about it?
You just literally there's a bit of metadata, but it's like the song title, the composer,
description, and tags.
It literally takes me 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes. That's you
you have to do it a song at a time.
No, I think you can bulk upload. I'm not sure about that, but I think you can do more than one. I'm pretty sure that you can. Yeah, if I can take a look right now, but I won't. But yeah, I'm pretty sure you can upload a bunch of stuff, and filling out the actual data is just super fast, and it accepts it right away. The I think the payout for is delayed. It's like in the same way that PROs are. There's a delay. So I probably won't see any money for 6 to 8 months, I think, from now, in the very earliest. But I can't remember exactly what the terms are.
Because they pay quarterly. So right. Are they paying at the end of March for that quarter, or are they paying for the quarter before that? It seems like they'd be paying.
They literally say all of that stuff. I just can't remember what it is right now. I don't want to take up time looking it up. But
we'll do another episode about that, because that's part of our journey in Content ID, and we'll do down the line once we both are in there and have that stuff going on, we'll have stuff to talk about.
Yeah, well, sure. we're gonna do a follow-up, a big follow-up Content ID podcast pretty soon, maybe even the next one. So we'll get back to that for sure. Real
quickly, I want to, since we're talking about all the things today, I want to, before we get started, mention that I do have a new ebook that I put out on my last video called 50 Ways to Make Music Income. And it's basically a way to build my email list and get people kind of ingested into the email system, because I've got my course that I'm working on. And once that's ready, I'll want to have people to talk to about it. But it's a fun quick little download, and you can find that. I'll put that in the show notes for this one on the podcast and in the in the video too. Totally free, just a free download, and it's just something I kind of put together from my perspective on a lot of things. So, and then my course I'm still working on. I've kind of got the ebook done, but I'm also going to release it out as a course. Let me ask you a question, and maybe people can comment on this who watch this. But would you be interested, or would people, or if you're listening or watching this, would you be interested in my course as in ebook form, or just should I put them together? Like one cost is $49 and one cost is $19.99 or something like that, or should I just put them together and offer them both?
Like the ebook and the video content together.
Do you say together?
Yeah.
I think it's important for them to have the ebook, because it's got the links to where all the places that I'm talking about, and especially since this is about stock libraries, I want them going to have the page to go to begin working with that stock library. And I think it's, while you could probably do that with a course, I think it's going to be nicer to have an ebook that's also.
Well, like if you package together, I mean, if I was thinking if you package together like a video content course with the ebook as like a supplementary, piece of that course, that'd be a hell of a course. That'd be a lot of value.
I think that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, I think that's what I've been planning to do. Well, let's move into today's content, the philosophy behind #AllTheMusicThings. I talk about all the things that you should do to make music income, and I approach it in my videos in order to say you should be doing not only sync licensing, you should also be doing stock music. You should also be doing putting your music up to Spotify. You should also be doing different things, composing for live events, composing for clients, doing music production for clients. all these different things I talk about. Teaching, that's an income. You could be working at a church and getting music income in some kind of role there. So I talk about that a lot on my channel, and some of the feedback that we've gotten is that they will say, that's not the normal advice. The usual advice from books and things like that is you really need to focus on your one thing that you get really, really good at. Mm-hmm. So in some circles, there is something called jack of all trades, master of none, which means you can do a lot. And I personally happen to think that the younger generation, let's say, I don't even know what they're called. What do you call 25 to 35 or even 15 to 25? I think the younger generations that are out there now are able to do a lot of things really well. And the reason they are is because, unlike the older generations in front of them, they came up with all the tools, hashtag all the tools. And they came up with computers and DAWs and everything ready for them when they were ready to start creating at 12. When you and I were ready to start creating at 12, some of that stuff didn't exist.
Yeah, that's right.
The best thing I could do was record onto a reel-to-reel and bounce the track back and forth from left to right channel, and all this hiss and stuff accumulated. And then I got to master that onto a cassette. And you would just buy the nicest, best hissless cassettes you could find.
Yeah.
So I think that the younger generation...
Now the hiss is cool, so...
Yeah, now they're adding hiss back in, which is, for those of us who worked on tape, we're like, why? There's a plug-in to create what we've been trying to get rid of for 40
it's all
years.
come full circle.
Anyway, my joke has always been that I've been a jack of all trades and master of three. And what those three would be whatever I said they were. But I do think from an income perspective, and this is where my all the music things thing comes from. I'm not saying that you should only focus on writing for stock music. Heavens no. You should not, or writing for stock sync and all these kind of things. I just think that you can, whatever that one thing that you're really good at, or several things that you're really good at, can be used to work to get income from all those things. Mm-hmm. And that's my general premise of all the things personally. And maybe I'll have to do a video on this from my own channel just for me. But
I think clarifying it like that is important, because I think all the things could imply something different to someone listening without clarification. And there's, someone brought up a good point in the Discord, which is that, all the things could be too many things, and could mean spreading yourself too thin, which is a perfectly reasonable, argument to make. And you don't want to spread yourself too thin, of course, that's never the goal. But I think, like you said, these younger generation coming up is just kind of almost like just better adapted to diversifying and putting their energy into multiple different things. It's just we live in this world where the multiple streams of income as an artist is just kind of like almost essential. I don't know any full-time artists who aren't kind of diversifying where they're making their money from. So I think it's an important philosophy, but and maybe we can explore how that philosophy applies to the actual, like on a musical level, like how the different types of music you're creating, because that's something that I think that a lot of stock composers struggle with. But we can get to there. We can get to that. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense in terms of just finding income from multiple streams. It's just something that I do. We both do, and both preach.
Well, sorry, I was trying to find the actual comment. Someone had said, you got to be careful with saying you should do all the things.
Yeah.
Here's how I look at it. I do one thing mainly, and that is compose. Mm-hmm. And that is what I try to be great at. So if I can do many other things, video editing, of course, and anything to do with design, and I've done computer animation. I know MIDI and everything real well. I know keyboards, and I talk about them on another channel. I know how to play the piano, and I can teach piano. I'm going to do that today. I can teach how to play trombone and stuff like that. All that stuff are things that I can do. But composing is the only thing I want to do. It just so happens that there are outlets for composing in many places that I want to bring income from. Mm-hmm. So when I was thinking about this subject today, my answer is I really want to focus on one thing, and that's creating. And now I also am an author, and I've written a lot of stories. I've kind of that's been on the back burner for a while, just because I've been so focused these past 2 years since I've been getting stuff into libraries, and composing is the first love. It's the love. It's the thing. That's what I spent the last 4 years getting a master's in. Mm. It's what I've been doing since I was 13 years old. It's how I identify. I identify as a composer, the end. There's only one thing as far as the way I identify as far as a creative is composing. So in that respect, there's not a lot of things. But after being a composer and building up a catalog, then the rest of my work is many ways of making income from that composition, from stock libraries, from sync libraries, from Spotify, which is something we don't talk about enough. And like, you're putting our music and some of our people into this Spotify playlist. I think that's a genius idea, and that's going to be great. It's going to be good for all of us to have those plays and listens and all that kind of stuff. And it may springboard off this podcast where people can go right in and listen to that, all of our composers and stuff that are connected with us through the Discord and things like that. Mm-hmm. So, and then once you get into teaching, when I teach I'll teach them how to play notes and read and all that kind of stuff, but I will also teach composition because that's what I do. That's the main love that I have. And almost anything that I'm doing, whether it's doing a taxi brief, I'm composing, because that's what I want to be doing, is composing. Whether it's getting my stuff out to Indentifyy, that's just making more income from stuff I've already composed and have out there. So it all, for me, all the things drills down to one thing: composing.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I identify as a composer, and then everything trickles down from that. I think the AlltheThings philosophy is an interesting one. It's one I thought a lot about leading up to this podcast, because and it's interesting, the comment that was brought up in the Discord about AlltheThings being too many things, and I often struggle with feeling like there's too much going on for me, because like I'm a composer and I'm also sort of like an entrepreneur, in the sense that like I'm running this academy. I have this this production music tools website. I'm trying to write music for sync. I'm trying to write for stock, and on top of that, there's the occasional gig that I have to pay attention to, like playing live, rehearsing for that. It just feels, I often feel overwhelmed. It is something I come up against a lot, and I think sometimes I do feel like I suffer from having too many things on the plate. But my philosophy, and this is how all the things kind of applies to me, is that I think that nothing ever really gets figured out unless you adopt a sort of a spirit of experimentation. And I've always been really experimental, not only in just the music that I'm writing, but with the kinds of things that I'm venturing out into doing. Now, I can't. The downside of it is that I don't have a lot of time to focus on some things that I'd like. Like, for example, the MIDI packs is a perfect example. Like, I don't have a lot of time for that, which is why I'm trying to farm it out and try to find people to help me with it. Because I think it's an interesting venture, but it's just with everything going on, it kind of falls lower on the list of priorities, and that's kind of the whole point of what I'm trying to say here is that I'm adopted this philosophy of AlltheThings, trying to put effort into a lot of different ventures, but we have to constantly reassess what is the most important thing at the end of the day, and then allocate the right amount of time to pursue it. And this is something that you talk about a lot with in relation to how things have been going with stock music. It's like, okay, Motion Array is going to pay us a lot less for the payouts. That means that you have to reassess and reconfigure what kind of time you're putting into these types of things. So now maybe royalty free or stock composing is like a little bit lower on the list of priorities for you. And that's the kind of the philosophy. That's how all the things applies to me. Like I want to do a lot of things, but I'm going to concentrate on the things that are most meaningful to me and prioritize them in terms of like how much time I'm giving them.
Yeah, and I think an important distinction to make with what I'm saying, and my channel, Make Music Income, is all about income streams from music, not how much time we spend making music. In other words, I'm going to spend a lot of time making music all my whole life. I always have, I always will. And a lot of the music I create, I don't know which way it's going to go or where it's going to go when I make it. Some I know that I'm making this particular album for a sync library that's exclusive, and I'm focusing it there. Now, that plans may change when that library that I create it for says no thanks, and I try some other libraries and they say no thanks, and I go, okay, stock, here you go. But my stock limitations basically are on my time uploading and my time tagging and my time, because as you know, you could spend as much time as you want on that, putting them in as many libraries as you want to. And our friend Daniel at Stock Music Licensing likes to say, put everything everywhere. And you could spend a lot of time, and I know that a lot of the people that are in your Discord, people listening to this podcast, people who are involved in stock licensing, they do this. They spend a lot of time.
Ton of libraries, yeah.
And it takes a lot of time. And like I said, I just signed with 6 new stock libraries, and all 6 of them have completely different ways to put the stuff up there. Some are super easy, some are super complicated, and some fall in between. But all different. So I have to watch my time there. And so, yes, those are one of the things. That's all the libraries. Let's say you do all the stock libraries you could do. And I know there are people who are focused on that. If they're in stock, they're going to do every library they could do. Every one they could throw music into, they're going to throw music into. And that's some people just, you don't do that. But a lot of people do that. And I'm probably up to about 20 libraries. I've stopped feeding some of them, but still feed 6 to 8 consistently. I just have to watch my time on that. But that's just one income stream. That's just one of the hashtag things. That's one of the all the things. And then another thing is the sync stuff that I do. And then another thing is teaching things I do. And all those things are work related and time related, not focus who I am related. So I think, yeah, and guess what? If you can only do the stock thing right now because you work a job, then that's all you should do. That's okay. I think if you're doing stock and you have total control over the stuff, you should also be doing Spotify. I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be playing this game where you're putting the stuff up there and trying to get into playlists and at least getting your stuff up to Spotify and a Spotify channel that can bring a stream. It doesn't take very long. If you're in something like DistroKid, it's like $20 a year, and you can put as many songs as you have up there. So if you have 100 songs out on stock libraries, you should also have them up to Spotify. Every time you get a new song done, you put it up to the stock libraries, and then you put it up to Spotify just like that. And
that's right.
I think everybody could be doing both those things. There's 2 things. That's not all the things, but that's 2 things. They could be releasing them in other ways to YouTube and making YouTube videos about them and stuff like that. They could be doing something like friends of ours, like I think, is it Lester, who has his own site basically, who is selling songs from his site and go through all that. And not everybody has that much time. It comes down to time, really.
It is time management. That's all. That's what we're talking about here is time management. You see, like there's only so much time in a day, so it's really important to, like, I'm rethinking the strategy on a daily basis. I'm waking up every morning like, what are the most important things for me to concentrate on today? Let's get them done. We
may have to change our. Yeah, go ahead.
Every day it's different for me. And, I have some things that are just going to fall lower on the list, unfortunately. But I'd love to, have infinite amount of time and just like kill them all, but it's just that's not the reality that we're living in.
I think most of us do not use our time wisely. I think most of us, I've had my own, since I got done with school and my master's, I've had every day, all day, on the weekdays and sometimes on the weekends to do all the things that I want to do. Now I'm getting ready to start doing some teaching. So that means I'm going to have to, if that happens like 2 or 3 afternoons a week, then I've got to really prioritize things in my early parts of my days, and say, okay, now what stuff am I going to cut out? What stuff am I going to do? I'm going to have to really start hourly putting stuff. We may have to change this podcast taping time back an hour or something for some things.
Yeah, well, I'm just enjoying the time I have before I have I have a kid in the picture. I mean, it's like, I don't know.
That'll change everything.
Yeah, exactly. I have a couple of friends who are like, one friend in particular just had his second baby and his hands are tied, man. I mean, it's like he's got no extra time. I'm sure a lot of the people listening probably are in similar situations when you have a family to take care of. It's and you would know what it's like too. It's just, I'm sure it's everything has to get real tight with time management, and I don't have that to worry about right now. So I still I feel like I'm living in some kind of dream world, but that'll come to an end at some point for me.
Get either a baby monitor that has some kind of indicator of when there's sound on it, or a video thing, so you can watch your kid right in front of your screen, and so you can work at night. My wife and I had a system because she was a morning person, I was a night person, so I always stayed up and did the late night feedings and things like that up until 2 or so, and then I would sleep in and she would do the morning stuff. And so, but I had a baby monitor right there watching the entire time. As I was sitting here working on my computer and working on music, I could see when she was making sounds. I could see when she was trying to get up or whatever, and then I would go in and take care of it. It's just
That's a brilliant idea. Actually, I should just score music to a video feed of my baby sleeping, and I could just write kids music and lullabies from now on.
I scored my wife's ultrasound. We still have it.
Perfect.
I literally
you got a head start. On that.
It wasn't I didn't write it. I just wrote a piece to it, and it was
cool.
One Hand, One Heart from West Side Story. And I don't know if you know that song, but when I saw the movie recently, I went to see it with my daughter, who's now 29, and I cried like a baby. Anyway, but yeah, I think that's the key, and that's what this all boils down to, is time management, and really that's what it's always boiled down to. Everybody has 2 hours a day or an hour a day they can put towards something, and if you cut out TV and things that you just sit around doing, wasting time, you could put it in there. And some people aren't willing to give that up. Some people's like, no, I like playing video games for 3 hours at night.
Yeah, it's hard to give up some of those things, man. It's really hard. And social life. I mean, it's been easy as of the last 2 years.
And social media and TikTok
and social media. Yeah. Scrolling the Instagram.
We haven't had our big social media episode yet, but it's on my list of things to talk about, because I've heard it talked about.
I still haven't mastered social media yet. So let's wait until.
Well. No, it's not about. No one ever masters it, because it changes every week. So you can't really master it. So I think it's worth talking about and it's part of this. You could include this in one of the things. Am I going to be doing my Instagram and TikToks and YouTube videos and all this kind of stuff, so that people know about my music? So it's promotion just becomes another thing, that you have to do. And these are the things that weigh on people. And when I talk about it,
I wonder if we could maybe just briefly explore something else that weighs on people a lot, which is something that someone in the Academy brought up just recently. And I think this kind of applies to the AlltheThings philosophy, but in a more of a musical sense. And it's that I think a lot of stock composers or sync media composers would relate to this. It's sometimes it feels like a struggle, and I certainly went through this. It feels like a struggle to know whether you should be focusing in on like a specific genre or style rather than just kind of like creating all sorts of different types of music. And I think that, I'm actually often, I think about this composing like conference summit that I went to like a few years back, and they brought in these like professional film composers and, from LA. Like a couple of them were pretty heavy hitters, and it was like a 3-day thing. And a lot of these guys, they're a bit on the older side, and the advice was like a resounding, like, you should be known as the composer who does this thing. Right? Like, you should be the horror movie composer, or you should be the electronic guy. And all these guys had their specific lanes, like they all had their niches that they really exploited in a way that's made them quite successful. And it's given me a lot to think about, because I think a lot of composers like myself who are interested in writing in so many different styles and genres struggle to know whether they should be maybe focusing in on like one specific thing. But I really think that that's kind of like old guard thinking. And I was just going to say that. I've always been just like interested in, I can't help it, man. Like, I like writing rock tracks as much as I like writing cinematic, folk, hip hop, lo-fi. It all is interesting to me. And like, in terms of the stuff I'm going to put up on Spotify, like, I don't care. Go to my Spotify and look. There's like 2 film score soundtracks alongside 2 lo-fi albums. Like, I don't know, man. Mm-hmm. I just think that in this day and age, it's like, just be experimental, do whatever you want. And then when you get to a point where maybe a lot of people are listening and you're establishing yourself for whatever reason, for whatever genre that you're working in, then that's a time to reassess and say, hey, like, maybe I could brand myself a little bit more specifically. But I think until as in a developmental phase, as a composer, as a producer, I think just be experimental and see what works for you, because without that philosophy of experimentation, which is what All the Things means to me personally, I don't think you're ever going to find out what your actual sound or your niche or your brand actually is. You have to like go and figure that out, and that just takes time. And on that journey, I think you should just adopt a philosophy of experimentation.
I'm closer in age to the people you're talking about, and even I can't be that guy. In other words, I have so many brands, and we've talked about fake artists and making brands and things like that before. But yeah, I think in 20 years, you're not going to see conferences like that with people like that. I don't think you're going to see, oh, that's the techno guy, that's the drum, whatever genre guy. I think people coming up like you, like me, but younger especially, are experimenting and able to do a lot of different styles now. It used to be different that there used to be styles. Like in the 80s, there was a style. In the 70s, there was a style. In the 50s, there was a style. In the 90s. But in the 90s and 2000s, the styles started just being any style. And the people that are making music now were born in the 90s and the 2000s when styles weren't just a thing. There was not a certain kind of jean you could wear. Mm-hmm. I went to the store yesterday to buy jeans. There's 4,000 types of jeans. Yeah. There's slim, straight, slim, regular, not slim, regular, straight. I mean, there's boot cut. There's like a billion kinds. But I can remember when only one kind was in vogue, only straight or only bell bottoms or
right.
whatever.
We're living in a post everything world.
I think so.
And I think that that applies to being a composer. Like there's no rules anymore. You can just do whatever you want, do whatever feels good, and the path forward will present itself to you. And that's always been my philosophy. And I think there is some. And I'm not trying to trash the benefit of being that person kind of brand, right? Like if everyone knows you as being really good at one thing, then you're going to probably get a lot of work doing that one thing. I think if you even if you look at like some of the the biggest like take Hans Zimmer for example. He's known as like the epic score guy, right? And I mean, if you look back on his career, I mean, the score to Dune is nothing like it is for True Romance. I mean, like True Romance was like a totally different vibe. It's like using a vibraphone for most of it. It's like it's not an epic score at all. I mean, the guy was clearly willing to experiment with different styles and genres and just be and have fun with it. I mean, he is what he is today, and he's known for a very specific type of sound. But that's not to say that I think on the way up, you just mess around. I think actors deal with this issue too. Like no one wants to be typecast too much. And actors will obviously sometimes turn down roles if they're always getting offered the same role because that like dries up after a certain amount of time. So I don't know. I think all the old rules just don't apply anymore.
I think if you're a band, it might be different. Like, but we've seen bands
but not necessarily,
that were one
not
way,
necessarily.
then
like
they evolved into something
exactly.
else.
Like take Radiohead. Their Kid A album was like this ambient electronic, masterpiece, and they were always known as like as a rock band, and it worked out well for them. I think it can rub people the wrong way if it's not done, if it's done carelessly. But I think that people actually grow to appreciate you more if you can branch out.
Relating this to stock music and sync licensing and even music brands that you might make and put out on Spotify. Mm-hmm. We don't live in the one thing anymore. In other words, you don't just make if I just put out music as Eric Copeland, it would be all over the place. There would not be a genre. There would be no genre because everything would be different. Same with you. If you just put everything out under your name, you were careful kind of with the artless stuff was a general category, wouldn't you say? Kind of lo-fi and...
Yeah, it's like cinematic lo-fi hip-hop, Yeah. And that's kind of like the brand I'm trying to do. It's like cinematic. So like I think that cinematic lo-fi can live alongside the soundtracks for some of my film on my Spotify. But that's just me. Some people might think about that differently and say, no, I need a different name for and a separate Spotify account for my film score music. But I don't know. That's just me. And like,
but see, I have a solo piano brand that is pretty far away from the jazz stuff that I do. That is even slightly different than some upright bass and piano trio stuff that I do. It's more traditional or more trio sounding than the pop forward contemporary jazz / EDM almost stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's a ton of stuff and then I have a bunch of folk stuff I've started doing that doesn't fit in any of those categories.
Right.
So
right. Well,
I've broken those all out into different brands personally.
Yeah, and I think that's a totally perfectly fine approach. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from taking that approach. If you can't connect any sort of thread between like the things that you're putting on, like you're tacking onto one brand, then it gets confusing, like for people, right? Yep. So there has to be some kind of connecting point. For me, I think that there's enough of a connecting point between like some of the the cinematic film scoring and the cinematic lo-fi. It's enough that I'm comfortable with it being under the same brand, but totally understand. Like I wouldn't put some of my like I don't know, maybe my like kids or like comedy tracks under
or rock
Spotify.
Stuff maybe.
Or rock stuff maybe too. Yeah, it's just not enough connection there. But yeah, I see what you're doing with your different brands, and I think that makes sense.
You don't have to do that.
No,
it's
you
just
don't have
that
to.
you can do that. There's options. You can go either which way you want to. You can wear whatever you want to wear. You can be whatever you want to be. We're a very, like you said, I love that. We're post all the things society, or post one thing.
Post one
society.
thing,
yeah. And you see this happening. I've noticed this happening on YouTube an awful lot. And we know people that have YouTube channels and decide to change what their focus is in their YouTube channel. I just watched a YouTuber that I've been following for years. She kind of got into it as a blogger, and then she found out that she could just get 1 million views with her YouTube channel, and she became a YouTube channel, talking about YouTube, because she had success with YouTube, and so it's a little like Make Music Income, but I designed it for that way from the start. And she just came out this year and said, all right, after all these years of really doing YouTube videos, I've decided I'm going to do just anything I want. And I'm going to just do, if I feel like talking about this today, I'm going to talk about this. And I watched a photographer do that recently who has 300 million subscribers or something crazy like that. He's a very well-known photographer. And he said, next year all my videos are just going to be all over the place and you're just going to deal with it. So I think we all evolve out of that thing. Now, Make Music Income and probably your Music Production Academy, those things likely won't evolve fast. In other words, they are there to be a specific thing for people.
Well, they are and it's interesting how even we kind of differ on in terms of like where we draw the line and for how many things live under the banner of our YouTube channels. Like you've separated Hello Composers from Make Music Income, which I think is totally makes sense. For me, I'm doing production tutorials, but I'm also talking about income related stuff all under the roof of one channel. And there's an argument to be made for separating those, and there's an argument to be made for having it all live under one channel. And I think it's subjective to some point, but I think that there's enough of a thread between the different topics that I chat about on the YouTube that I feel like they can all live under one roof. But
it's also different for me because I've been working with 20 to 30 brands at a time for 20 years. My job has been working for artists who have their own brand, and each one is a unique, different brand and different genre and different audience and different everything. So for me, multiple brands at a time is normal. For some people who hear all the things and think of what I'm doing with all these brands, they're going to think more like you. I think I'll just keep everything under one roof. It's easier for me, and I get that, and this is my experience, and your experience is going to be different. But I do think that what I'm talking about in all the things on my Make Music Income channel, including this podcast, is not that you should be a going out and doing gigs guy, that you should be in sync, and you have to be in stock, and you have to be in Spotify, and you don't have to be in all those things, in all the things. But if you're able to be in as many things as possible to bring incomes back to you, that's how you're going to make a full-time music life. And those of us who live a full-time music life certainly don't make that in full-time income from one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and if you are making like a full-time income from one thing, I think it's a vulnerable spot. I think you're in a vulnerable place. And that's
like Tom talked about. He said, if one of my income streams goes down, and he's got 5 or 6 equal income streams, if one goes down, he's still got four or 5 other ones that are there to bring income that month. And we're all like that. Yeah, Motion Array went down. And for some people who only did stock music, and that's all they did, and Motion Array was like one of 5 libraries they fed, they are crippled right now. Because now most of those people, if that's what they were living off of, they had another job, or probably they had to have had another job. But if all they were living off was Motion Array, they are super crippled right now.
Yeah, and that's to be insanely difficult to deal with that if that was your your main source of income. I mean, look at all the folks that lost a huge chunk of their income when COVID hit that were in the performing industry. I mean, I have so many friends here in Vancouver that just devastating. I mean, like, we were lucky that we had some help from the government here, and that doesn't exist in a lot of places in the world.
So to start to wrap this up, I think the philosophy is that it's going to have to be all the music things that you can handle, that makes sense for you, and that might be a few things, and for others of us it might be a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll find in your career as you we have a lot of new creators that follow us, a lot of new people who say, I've just picked this up, I'm just starting to make music and put it into stock libraries, and how do I do this? For them, when they look at that, they go, oh, how could I do more than this plus my job? Because they've got another job most likely. And I would have thought that too when I was 26 years old and I had I had just gotten married and then we had a baby, and I could do whatever I could do as long as it was after like 10 o'clock at night. I didn't have a lot of time to be doing other things, but I had a day gig. I had a day computer job, a corporate job. So it made less sense then than it does now. Since the last 21 years, all I've done is make music income from a variety of sources. And so for me, that's the thing. And the reason I just say this is that so many people tell me on a daily basis their dream is to only do music for a living. But you need to know, if that's the way it is, that means that you're going to likely have to juggle a lot of jobs, and you're going to have great time management, and you're going to have the understanding of your spouse, and you're going to or whoever, and you're going to have to put everything in its place to do that, because that's what it takes to survive in this kind of life.
That's right.
From my perspective.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
And this whole video channel, this podcast, is just Steve and I's perspective on all these things. We're not saying this is the right thing. This is the only thing. Always just disagreeing is great. To have conversation, and that's what our Discord's all about. You can find a link to that below in the show notes or the description, and that's growing, continues to grow. And boy, there's been so much going on in there. I couldn't even keep track of it yesterday.
I can't keep up anymore. It's crazy. It's amazing how much it's exploded. Largely, thanks to you. And once I kind of handed it over to you, it's just insane the amount of growth that it's seen. And we're learning so much from it. I mean, it's like, to reiterate what you were saying before, it's like, if we're wrong, or if you have an opinion that goes against some of the stuff that we're talking about here, you got to let us know. I mean, it's like, that's how it was with Content ID, right? I mean, we kind of just had this like preconceived notion about Content ID until someone came into the Discord and was like, hey, by the way, I think they've made a really strong case for it, so much so that we're both, we both kind of completely 180'd on that. So there you go. I mean, we're open to having discussions and to thinking and looking at things in a different way.
But Content ID is just another one of the things. It's another thing that you have to juggle, and you have to make time to do, and you have to keep up with. But now it's a reactionary type of thing. Motion Array drops how much it pays. We need to make that up somewhere. So that's why we're going to look for other libraries. That's why we're going to look for Content ID money and try to bring that back up. And
right.
We still likely, if someone had said they made $8,000 on Content ID, even if Motion Array had not changed, we probably would still be like, okay, we got to get in on that. But at the same time, with the whole Motion Array change, it was just an obvious change that we had to make. And now a lot of people are rethinking it and signing up. Our Discord's full of people who are signing up. Indentifyy is probably getting a lot of business from us right now.
Totally.
So,
yeah, I think even Daniel from Stock Music Licensing is thinking about it too.
Is it? Good.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, I think you can't collect on stuff retroactively. That's something
you cannot. Only stuff they go out and find now.
Only the second they find it, that's when they start clocking the income. So they don't take into account previous watch time or views.
Okay. All right.
Unfortunately, otherwise maybe I would have gotten a nice little fat check. Who knows?
Yeah, it's like it's too bad it's not like Sound Exchange, which was holding money the whole time for me, you know, and had a nice big fat check that came in right away. Right. Well, that should wrap up this episode. If you are listening to this, we are also on YouTube. Make sure to catch us there. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to catch this in your car, you can. We're on Spotify and we're on Apple Podcasts, all over the place. We're on different places. And you can also catch it in the link below if you want to go over to watch it on wherever we are online. So just catch the podcast, watch our videos, and we're going to continue talking about lots of things. That's just what we do. We're trying to give you the best information on ways that you can make music income from whatever you're trying to do. And don't worry, we're going to be getting into other things as this thing progresses than just stock licensing. Stock licensing, I think, is something we'll always talk about just because there are a lot of people interested in it, and sync licensing as well. And we'll probably be leaning a little bit more into sync as Steve gets more into it, and as I have more experiences with getting paid from it this year and things like that. But there's lots of other things. I want to talk about teaching more. I want to talk about gigging more. There's a lot of musicians, including you, Steve, that, when this summer comes up, it's going to be about getting back out there. And
I already got like a few gigs on the books for the summer too, so it's exciting.
And talk about music producing. I think that there are lots of jobs out there for music producers that I don't think we're really getting nearly all the pure music producers who make their livings and make a good income from being music producers in here. And so I want to get more of those guys that aren't worried about any licensing. They don't even do that because they're so busy with clients and mixing and all that kind of stuff. So since we both have so much experience, I'd love to get more of those people in here. So stay with us.
Totally.
We're going to talk about a lot more things.
And, and if you're watching us on YouTube, as always, like throw your comments, and we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Whether that's just dropping in to say hello, or whether you have suggestions for future topics, whether you want to add to the conversation that we're already having, we'd love to hear from you guys. So hit us up.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
Yeah, see you guys soon.